But now it's time to start talking track talk as we do each and every week. And we join Sunland Park Racetrack and Casino voice. It's Eric Alwan who's joining us for another exciting week. Eric, thanks for doing this segment with me here this week. A little bit of an adjustment, but really excited to get started. How's everything going?
Thank you, Adrian. Am I going to make a gambler out of you?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes,
Oh, you
sir.
already
I think
are.
so. No,
Ah!
not yet. But I think after
Okay.
this segment, I'm gonna have to play some nice
Some
bets out
ponies.
there. That's right. Exactly. Well, let's get started by talking and recapping last week. Give us a little bit of a rundown
Sure.
of some of the highlights last week, transitioning into what a huge week this really is. Today, obviously, we got a chance to see some of the great races, and then tomorrow, a huge slate. So, but before we jump into that, let's talk about last week. Let's recap what happened.
Pretty good weekend last week, Adrian. We had trials for a race that's called the Shoe Fly, and that race is worth 6 figures plus. And it'll be a final that'll be held later in the month. And a horse called Call Me Jesse Cartel, I think, is the one to watch for because he was the fastest in the trials. It was the top qualifier. But a horse to look for a kind of a sneaky edge is a horse called Solid. He broke from the 10 hole, which is the widest part of the track, and he took like a right-handed turn right out of the gate. Must have lost 2 or 3 lengths, went further than everybody else, and was second the trial and was good enough to qualify. So he's a sneaky horse to maybe bet in the finale. He'll have a price. He won't be the favorite. That Call Me Jesse Cartel will probably be the favorite. We had a beautiful stakes race on Sunday to kind of commemorate the New Mexico area and whether you like red or green enchiladas, and it was the red or green stakes. And there was a horse that just flew like the wind, and it was White Lightning. Great name, a great horse, and I think it's just going to be one of many other stakes races for him to win here this season. He won for our leading quarter horse trainer, that's JJ Gonzalez, and one of the best riders for quarter horses in the world was Noe Garcia. He was aboard, so kind of a quarter horse flavor, last weekend, and then we're still getting used to the new format that we have. We present the best that we have in thoroughbreds on Thursdays and Fridays, and then the quarter horses sort of take over on the weekends. So tomorrow is really a red letter day for us here at Sunland because we don't usually have 4 stakes races in one day, but it's kind of a prelude, Adrian, to Sunland Derby Day, which is going to happen in a month. So it's a lot earlier than it was last year. The Sunland Derby is going to happen on February the 18th. So we have kind of a prep day for the Sunland Derby coming up tomorrow. And there's 4 big stakes races, and it's kind of highlighted by the Riley Allison Derby, which this year is going to be the only live local prep for the Sunland Derby. But I expect a lot of out-of-towners to come in because a lot of out-of-towners are coming in for tomorrow's big race. There's a horse called Call Me Jeremy that's going to be running, and he comes in from Churchill Downs. So it shows you, Adrian, that Sunland still commands a lot of respect when it comes to the Sunland Derby, because horses come in from out of town and usually win it. They didn't last year, however. A local horse won it in Wild on Ice. Also tomorrow, there's going to be a prep for our Sunland Oaks. And that race is called the Borderplex Stakes. And there's a horse in that one called Candy Isle. And it's one of many horses that our top thoroughbred trainer has kind of had there out of the same mare called Rose's Desert. And she impressed me a ton at the Hobbs racetrack called Zia. So I think she's going to be the big favorite in tomorrow's Borderplex. And if that's not enough, we've got Competitive Idea, who won the KLAQ handicap running in a sprint race, the Fort Bliss Stakes, and even a really good Bold Eagle handicap. So tomorrow is going to be really busy and may shine some light on who's going to show up in a month for the big races that we have for the season.
That's really exciting, Eric, because when I'm thinking about this weekend, I would think that if you're a racing fan, you might want to call out of work tomorrow, knowing all the big ones tomorrow. Let's talk a little bit more about the Borderplex Stakes. You mentioned Candy Isle. I want to ask about Only One America. What do you know about that horse right there?
That one's a speedy type. He's probably, or she is probably going to set the table in that race. and kind of set it up, I think, for Candy Isle. Candy Isle takes a little bit of time to get warmed up, but once she swings into the turn, oh, she's just like all the rest of the horses that are out of that same mama. Senor Buscador is a brother. He's running at Gulfstream in the one of the richest races in America. That's going to happen later this month, and they even want to take that horse to Dubai. A former Sunland Derby winner called Runaway Ghost, also a brother to this filly. So rarely have I seen one mare produce so many good horses. It's just like in the annals and history of racing in New Mexico, she's the best mama by far. And she was a great racehorse too. So that also is doubly rare. Rarely do you see that, you know. It happens, of course. You know, the great mothers can be great racehorses in their own right. But I've seen it go the other way where they couldn't throw anything. But this mother is a blue chip mare that Todd Fincher's been able to train all of her, what they call her offspring. And I'm really impressed with Candy Isle because she's bred very strongly. And those connections just seem to win all the time. And having that experience that she had at Sunland, or the experience that she had at Zia, really, really impressive. What is interesting about your question, though, is that Todd Fisher also trains only one America. So really, it's in Todd's best interest to send only one America to the front, set the pace, go as fast as she can for as long as she can, and then it might set it up for the run of the Candy Isle. Kind of like in human sprints. Sometimes there's a rabbit, you know, to set a hot pace. There are some good other ones in the race, but I don't think they have the numbers. You know, they're like 30 points inferior. And Candy Isle has impressed me so much. And I told you wrong. I'm sorry about that. Candy Isle is by Gun Runner out of a street cry mare. There's another horse I'm thinking about that Todd has that is out of that great mother, but Candy Isle tried Del Mar, which is one of the big tracks in the Southwest near San Diego. And the horse had a troubled trip in her debut. Then she won at the other racetrack that I called, that's Albuquerque, and won a stakes race, the Manzano, and then won another one, the Zia Princess. So she is really, you know, taking the steps forward each and every time, taking on better and better competition. Gun Runner was a Breeders' Cup Classic winner. So, you know, 20 years ago, and I've worked here for over 33 years, we didn't have horses that were this well bred. But the casino brought in the money. Money brings in better horses. Better horses equals usually more handle. So this is an example of a $250,000 horse, you know, that was bought as a baby. And those prognostications have panned out so far. In just a couple of months of running, she's earned half that. If she can win the Oaks later, oh, she would have paid off her price tag already. So that's kind of how it works in racing, you know.
Yeah.
And when you own a female, you own her for the rest of her breeding life, and you get to keep the babies. It's a really neat deal if she's good.
I love it. Hey, in Friday's 7th race, how about the Bold Ego handicap? One of the shining horses that I'm looking at, 4-time winner Topsy, who's proven to be solid at this type of track. What can you tell us about this race here?
You're an excellent handicapper. I've got 3 check marks on that one. Steve Asmussen, for one thing, is her trainer. He's a Hall of Famer. And Steve kind of grew up in the Laredo, Texas area. His mother, Marilyn, his dad, Keith Asmussen, were both big in racing when I was a little kid in the 70s. And they liked Sunland. They were big on quarter horses back in the day. But Steve has just taken it to a huge new level. I mean, the pantheon of racing. He is considered arguably the best trainer that ever lived and has the most wins ever and a ton of money. And whenever you see him bring one in, they all have great records. They ship well, meaning they can go from track to track to track, and it doesn't seem to bother them when they're on the road. They're good road warriors. They're also well trained. For example, Topsy has run in Hot Springs, Arkansas, last time out. Was at Zia in Hobbs the time before that. Was in Oklahoma City at Remington the time before that. then was at Churchill Downs in Louisville the time before that. She's also run at Ellis Park, which is in Kentucky, Belmont, which is in New York. All of her figures are superior. And the one time she came to New Mexico at Zia, she romped. So I think she's just too good. Maybe not necessarily the fastest, but has the best kick, and I think can beat these types. And if that's not enough, Steve also has a horse coming in from Maryland called Worst Behavior. She's no slouch. Racing in Maryland is usually considered top notch. So it's a really, it's a field of 8, but they're all sort of proven winners. But I just love the way Topsy is, reaching peak form. They last ran her at Oaklawn, and Oaklawn just has the best horses in the world. They do. Sometimes they have maiden races, which horses have never won a race, worth $125,000. It astounds me that the money has gotten so good out there. But Oaklawn is without question top three track in America. It's that good. So if anybody comes from there, I'm always watching for those. And our very top rider from last year, Luis Fuentes, is riding. So it's a very good race for the fillies and mares.
Let's move over to the 8th race. This is the Fort Bliss Stakes, one of the more competitive ones in this slate this weekend. What can you tell us about this race?
This is, to me, a sequel to the race where Brad and Steve came out for the KLQ handicap. It was a rather cold day, but it was a fast race. I mean, they were rocketing at the beginning of it, and it was a race at 5 furlongs. Tomorrow's Fort Bliss is at 6. So a little bit longer, but the way Competitive Idea won that race, I mean, the racing form says that he only won by 3 parts of a length, but it was a comprehensive win. The jockey, Alfredo Juarez Jr., was just sitting. He wasn't even asking for any more. He knew he had it with 100 yards to go. So I hate to say, that form doesn't always repeat itself. These are not machines. They're made of flesh and blood just like us. And if they have a bad day, they can run out of the money. But the way this horse fires, and here's a stat for you. Over Sunland Park soil, Competitive Idea has won 4 times with a second and a third. Sometimes handicapping is that easy. Just look at how they do at the particular track. And that kind of goes back to what I said about Steve Asmussen's horses. They can sometimes defy that stat, but I like a horse that's a horse for course. No doubt about it. He's winning over half the time that he races here. He's not facing anybody tougher than what he faced last time. So sometimes it's good to cash rather than going away with a smile, except the $6 that you're going to get from a $2 bet. It's still worth it, in my humble opinion. And I've been wrong so many times.
Hey, I like it.
I want to say the name of that horse that's coming in for the Riley Allison, Lucky Jeremy. I hope I said it right. This is the horse that won a maiden race at Churchill, and it was a $92,000 race. So tomorrow he's going to be taking on winners. But man, is he well bred. He's by looking at Lucky, who is a champion in his own right. And we got a field of 8, and most of them are coming out off of last out wins. You rarely see that. All but one. All but one of the 8 horses is coming off a win. But to me, you can win at Churchill, you can win anywhere. And a high-profile trainer that has, in my memory, has never come here before. So something registered in his mind that, hey, I want to win the Sunland Derby. It's worth $400,000. Let's go to a prep. And what's the Riley Allison worth? 100. So this is a great way for Lucky Jeremy to kind of get used to the New Mexico air and our track.
Most definitely. Eric, let's wrap up with Sunday's race. This is a big one, 100,000 guaranteed. What can you tell us about Sunday's race?
I don't know too much about it, sir. It's the Lou Wooten and Sidney Valentini, and it's a $100,000 race for the fillies and mares, kind of the older fillies and mares. There's a horse that won here last season, and her name was, or is, My Heart Just Runs. Tony Cedillo trains this one. I think it's a pretty good spot for her, in that there doesn't seem to be any titanic, powerful champion in the race, and they're running for big money. And Tony Cedillo, trainer, is a highly acclaimed quarter horse trainer. And when you're handicapping races or trying to make money at this game, there's a relationship between how good the trainer is and how good the jockey is, because it all kind of flows together where the top profile trainers get the best jockeys, in turn get the best horses. Doesn't always follow suit, but there's definitely a trend, you know, kind of like betting on the Buffalo Bills of late and not betting on the Cowboys. Oops, did I say that?
Oh, you had to go there, Eric, but that's a great way to finish up here
Yeah.
today. Eric, I really appreciate it. What a big weekend ahead for Sunland Park Racetrack and Casino, and it's always great to catch up with you.
Thanks so much, sir. We appreciate it. Take care.